potentially unpopular opinion, I think indie games are better than AAA games. Hey, it's Amanda at Cutie Indie Rex. I'm not trying to start a fight, so AAA gamers, please don't come for me. I started gaming as an adult, so definitely a newer gamer. And I started by going through my partner's backlog and playing the games that he already owned. And those were AAA games. I played God of War, Red Dead 2, Persona 5, Breath of the Wild, Ghost of Tsushima, all of the gems. And those games are amazing. They have amazing stories, they take you on a journey, they have great worlds, but I still like indies better. To the point where I don't really play AAA games at all anymore. The reason why I swapped to indies was because I played a AAA game, it cost me 80-90 Australian dollars, and I was really disappointed. It was fine, but it wasn't great. And the next game I played was a small game. It was by a local developer and I got it on sale for like $2 and it blew my mind on how good it was. Agent A, A Puzzle in Disguise, if anybody wants to play that game. So good. And that kind of was a big shift of mindset that indie games actually are amazing. And for me, they're just so much better in so many ways than AAA games. If you do love indie game content, make sure to subscribe. I stream new indie games every week, and I also put out videos on cute indie games. So one of my favorite things about indie games is that they have less restrictions. Indie games are essentially small businesses. They're made up of really small teams of people, sometimes even one person. They generally don't have big investors, they don't have CEOs that they need to please. Those higher-ups aren't there that will determine the direction that the game is going in. And that means they can do whatever they want, which honestly is super cool. I find with some AAA games that they're really into the open world, combat, exploration. I don't even play AAA games that much, and I've played so many of those games. Honestly, it just gets kind of boring. It feels like copy and paste. It feels like I'm kind of playing the same game over and over. And they do this because it works. It makes money, people like it. Why would you change something that has been proven successful in the past? But honestly, to me, this is super boring. I love indie game studios because they can push the envelope and try something new. They can have something that is super different. They can have gameplay that has never been tried before. So take something like Return of the Obra Dinn. I love this game, this is probably my favorite game of all time. But the gameplay and the art style is super niche. It's a really challenging puzzle game. It's a game where you have to take notes as someone playing it. It's a game where you have to use real critical thinking. And honestly, it doesn't appeal to a huge, wide variety of audiences. But that game is a masterpiece. It is stunning, and I'm so happy that it exists. So not only can indie studios have really unique gameplay, but they can also have really unique stories. The representation of different types of people in the AAA video game industry is abysmal. It is slowly and incrementally getting better, but it is still terrible. It tells the stories of straight cis white men over and over and over. And sometimes you get some queer folks in there, sometimes you get some people of color, but not often. But with indie games, you can tell those stories. It is so refreshing to see protagonists that are of all different types of people. I don't want to see stories that are just like mine. I want to see stories of lots and lots of different people. There are honestly so many examples of this, and it's because small teams can take their own experiences and put them into games. They can also take experiences of lots of other people and put them into their games. One example that I really love is Toad House Games, who publish visual novels. They have a few games right now out on itch.io, and I'm very excited to see their big game that's coming out on Steam. And the one that I have played is about two friends who open up a halal food truck during Ramadan. Parts of this story are so relatable to anyone. The struggles of pleasing your parents, trying to work closely with your best friend and work on communication, and the stress of starting something new and trying to succeed at a business or a new venture. But there's also parts of this story that I learned so much from. And being able to experience different things through games and seeing different perspectives and different lifestyles and different religions, this is what I love about gaming, and this is what I love about indie games. Another awesome example is One Night Hot Springs, which if you haven't played, you absolutely should because it's free. This one is about a trans woman who is going with her friends to the hot springs in Japan. While this is specifically through the lens of a Japanese society, this tells the story of what trans people deal with on a daily basis. What kind of thoughts and emotions and the daily struggles that cis people just wouldn't think about. Consuming that diversity of content gives the player empathy, and that's really what we need more of in the world. Without having those restrictions on what developers can create, they're allowed to create something beautiful. I'm gonna get emotional. Another thing that I love about indie game studios is that they have really cool communities. You can be involved in the development before the game is released and afterwards. So unlike AAA studios where they can announce a game and say that they're releasing it in a month and people will buy it, indie game studios start their marketing extremely early. They start their TikTok, they start their Twitter, even before they have a Steam page. And that's to get started on the momentum of people recognizing their game and liking it and wanting to buy it in the future. They also need to start that early because crowdfunding like Kickstarter is a huge way to get funding. I find this to be so exciting because you can follow along on the development and actually have an influence on it. Even after the game has been published, your input can impact future updates. So a really cool example of this is Cozy Grove. I started playing Cozy Grove soon after release, and they are really good at listening to what the players want. So certain things that I found kind of frustrating and other players found kind of frustrating were fixed in future updates. So not just big content updates, but those small quality of life updates that just made the game so much better and so much easier to play. And it honestly is so nice as somebody who is playing a game to reach out to a developer and to have them respond and actually care and want to fix what might be broken or might be hard to understand. Some of the amazing ways of getting involved are playtesting, interacting on TikTok and Twitter, joining the game's Discord server. Another thing that I love about watching this development as it happens is to get to know the game developers. So I've had TikTok for maybe 6 months at this point. September, October, November, December, January, February, March. So I've had TikTok for under a year, and I've made so many friends with game developers. TikTok is one of my favorite platforms because I feel like you can really get to know somebody as a game is developing. You kind of get to know the studio, you get to know the humor, you get to know the reasons why they're making this game and how they're making it the way they are. What games have they already worked on? What was their career path like? What have they dealt with in their life that they now want to put into a game? All of that to me is so interesting because I think the thing we all crave about going onto social media is the human connection, especially in ridiculous lockdown times. And it's good for the game developers as well because when people know your story and bond with you as a person and relate to you as a person, they're more likely to buy your game. And finally, the cost of games. I know that this one is somewhat of a touchy subject. I think it's funny that people want to support small business so bad, but then get mad when indie game studios charge money for their games. Like, I get it, I don't want to live in capitalism either, but you gotta pay your bills. Indie games are generally cheaper than AAA games. Honestly, this is why I haven't played that many Nintendo exclusives. I've played Breath of the Wild and Mario Kart, and that's it. Because again, here they are $90 and they do not go on sale. Do you know how many indie games I could buy for $90? Especially if they're on sale. Oh my gosh, the Steam sales where you can get a game for $2, I can't. Or the game bundles, like the one that just happened on itch.io, where you get like 1,000 games for $10. Do I think you should pay more than that? Yes, if you can't afford it. But also, one of the big barriers to gaming is the cost to entry, which means when you're starting up a hobby, you don't want to spend a ton of money on a gaming system or buying huge, gigantic games. So indie games are a great gateway game even if you want to get into AAA gaming later. Because buying good games, especially if you buy them on sale, can give you the amazing experiences that everyone loves from gaming. I do also want to work to break the how much gameplay equals how much value a game has, because I absolutely think that super short games can have so much value. I also know that there are games that don't cost that much, that can give you hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of gameplay if you are looking for that. I think ultimately the beauty in indie games is that there really is something out there for everyone. There is more of a diversity of characters. There's interesting gameplay. And this is not always something that you can get with AAA games. Playing only AAA games, I thought gaming was not for me. I thought gaming was just for the people who are really good at it, who are really competitive, and not for the people who just wanted like a good story and like a chill, relaxing time. Indie games just honestly totally changed my perspective of gaming. And this is why I only spend my money on indie games now. I do have a video of my top 15 indie games of all time. If you're just getting started with gaming overall, or just getting into indie games, this is an amazing place to start. Also, if you've been playing indie games for a while and want to make sure that you've hit all of the all-time faves, go check it out. I'm playing around with some different kinds of video formats. Let me know if you did like this chatting one, and also what other topics you'd like me to cover. I'll see you next time, and happy gaming!